All right, so we're gonna start. Thank you everyone for coming. Super excited to see you all here. My name is Gili Fleekop. I'm gonna be today's moderator, host. I own a social media agency called Pink Chili. We're a Gen Z social media agency focusing on making really authentic and raw content, specifically for TikTok. And I'm super excited to have you guys here. So our agenda today, we're first going to start out by talking to Tal Almog. I'm going to introduce her in a second. And we're going to talk about the why, the what, and the how of training content. And then we're going to move over to speak with Courtney Sinnott, who is the head of training at Egg Harbor Cafe. And we're really going to understand what goes into making great training content, great professional content. And we're going to be able to see some real world, real life examples of training content that Courtney herself has implemented in her organization. And then we're going to have time at the end for Q&A. Please feel free to use the chat. We have a very awesome co-founder of mine monitoring the chat named Noam. So if you have any questions, she'll take note. And at the end, we'll be sure to answer them all. So let's get started. Thanks everyone for joining. So I would love to welcome Tal to the virtual stage. Tal Almog has over 15 years of experience in the field of learning and e-learning. She's defined, developed, and brought multiple educational products to market. And she currently serves as the Chief Operating Officer at Bytes, which is a training platform for training and ongoing training that has a social media style to it. So Tal, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Gili. Hi, Courtney. I'm super happy to be here with you today. And actually, it's so exciting to see our community of training experts that is growing and growing. I must say that this topic is very close to my heart. I always thought of content as a key for good training, effective training. It's actually the heart of the process. And it also enables us as content creators and training experts to really shine and bring in all our creativity. And this is really amazing and great to be here with you today.
I totally agree. Thank you so much for joining us. So I want to start off our first question. So we learned in your intro that you've been in the training and the learning world for nearly 2 decades. As we say, you've been around the block. You've seen training evolve and go through, this evolution of what it's becoming now. And if you could just kind of high level overall, what are some of the old versus new ways of training?
Yeah, of course. So first of all, it's a great question. Second of all, I think that Gili, that you as a Gen Z content creator are going to love you're going to love my answer because when we speak about the new ways and methods of training, actually it's all about user experience. And if to be more specific, it's all about employee experience. Good tools for good new tools for training are based on, or we can say inspired by, the way people actually behave, the way they communicate, the way they consume content. Think about instant messaging, Instagram, TikTok, all those things they actually need and must define the way we train today. It's not always easy to recognize the right tools that actually are inspired by those things that I just mentioned. But when a company actually uses those tools, this is when the magic of the new training happens. And this is amazing to see, and Courtney will elaborate about it in a few minutes. So this is the first thing that I would like to mention. Another thing is that we need to remember, and we have here many training experts. We will all agree that when it comes to training, it's not only about the content. We are going to focus today on the content, but it's not only about the content. It's actually a puzzle with many pieces that complete each other to a great process, a great training process. And we must make sure that each piece is treated with this approach. If we want to create like a comprehensive and complete training process that speaks the language of now.
Definitely, for sure. I think that's really interesting. I think coming from a content perspective as well, I forgot to mention this in the beginning, but I'm a content creator myself with over around 15 million views now on TikTok. And I'm also a YouTuber and podcast host. And I think to always remember that you're not just looking at one little thing, that, there's nothing's in a vacuum. There's always, that bigger puzzle and zooming out. So it's super cool. And I have to ask the question of the hour.
I must say that you are one of the best content creators that I know. Something that I must put on the table. And I think that people can learn a lot from you about content, and now you can continue.
Thank you, Tom. I'm blushing. But I have to ask the question of the hour, the name of the webinar title, a really, really interesting question of what really is the difference between training content and training materials?
So it seems like this is a really sexy topic. We have here like dozens of people, or more than dozens, that registered to this webinar because of this, due to the topic. So it's a great question and a great topic. The bottom line is that training materials today, are the basis for training content. Okay, this is the bottom line. But if to start from the beginning, so let's say that as training experts, when we build a training program, we conduct a very comprehensive process. We define the goals, we define the audience, we understand who are our professional experts, and what is the information that needs to be delivered to our employees. The outcome of this process is the materials. And when we talk by materials, I mean that we get a set of files, presentations, sometimes videos that are very organized, that cover all the information that needs to be delivered. And sometimes they're almost ready to share with our employees. Again, they're clear, organized, sometimes even designed, they look very good, but the word almost is super, super important here, because today those materials are not enough. A few years ago, they were enough. And Gili, again, I don't know if you remember, as a Gen Z content creator, very young content creator, I don't know if you remember, but there were times when people actually used to read texts. There were times when our employees, they could read a page and actually internalize the content there, the information. This is not our reality nowadays. We all know that. Text is not relevant anymore. And all those format files, presentations, long videos, they are great. We must have them, but based on them, we must take a step forward and create the content. It must be engaging, appealing, and a few more things that we will elaborate about in a few seconds. But this is actually the fine line between materials and content.
I think it's really interesting that you say that, because Courtney and I were chatting yesterday, and I said content is content. Like, it doesn't really matter in what it's the vessel. It doesn't matter, what the topic is, but strong content is strong content. And the fact that you're noting here that people's attention spans have changed, people's type of content they're used to consuming is changing. I myself, I speak for a lot of my Gen Z peers, is that I'm really most comfortable with video MP4. And it's really interesting to see how that in a way reflects onto the training and learning world. We can see very parallel trends. So my follow-up question to that, Tal, is can you elaborate a little bit more on how do we define training content? What really, like, how can we wrap that?
So it's super, super important to understand or to be aware to the guidelines when we create the content, when we take those materials and actually based on them create the content. I'll be happy to share now a few of the guidelines. I must say that Courtney will complete the picture. She will share her perspectives. She will demonstrate the amazing way that she does all these things at Egg Harbor. So just share the guidelines, and then we'll continue. And I think Courtney's examples are great.
Sure.
So the first thing that, again, we will all agree about is that content must be short. Content must be short, but it doesn't mean that we can't deliver long courses and complicated processes in digital platform. It means that everything should be divided to small pieces, to nuggets. And when I say nuggets, I'm very happy to use this word, because those nuggets of content, they must be very tasty. They must be sweet and tasty. It has to be something that actually make people to want to take the next bite. And this is actually, we build the training process based on those nuggets, snacks, bites, you name it. We call this kind of process a playlist of bites, but actually this is it. So this is the first thing that we need to understand. The second thing is, and this is something that as training expert, we're used to work with presentations and with, we know how to organize text. Again, it's super important to have the materials as a basis that is very organized and contains all the information that the employee actually needs. But content, the way we wrap it and share it with the employees, must be based on media. This is something that, again, we all know it's not always very simple to actually create it as a media. Sometimes it's much more easier to just go and create amazing PowerPoint presentation, but this is not the way. Content must be media-based. And this is where actually I think I can recommend to add to our trainers' way of thinking, the marketers' perspective. And think about marketers. When they want to deliver a message and make sure that customers actually get the message, they probably won't use amazing PowerPoint. They probably won't use very professional and tight video. They probably won't use long video. They will use Gili,
Short
TikTok.
form, yeah. Short form
TikTok.
video.
They will use TikTok, this kind of format. TikTok, story, social media style content, and we have a few things to say about this type of content, but again, it must be short, and this is it. This is the second point. So we spoke about the fact that the content must be short. We spoke about the fact that it must be media-based. And now I want to mention the fact that is super important today, that content will be interactive as well. Actually, it's very clear when we add to every nugget a question, a survey. So it's our way as the trainers to nail the message for the learner. And it's also our way to monitor understanding. And this is, again, super important. I would like to emphasize that by that, I don't mean long quiz after a long video. That won't do the job. This is not the way. A nugget and interaction. Nugget and interaction. This is the way we build a new training process that, again, speaks the language of Gen Z people. Okay, so you led me to the next point. And we all know that Gen Z people they want to be able to express themselves. They want to be able to share their thoughts, to ask questions, to share tips, experiences, etc. So it's super simple, that we need to find the right tools that enable them to do that.
Collaboration.
That actually enable to open like a chat or a discussion or something that will enable us to create like a collaborative learning, peers learning, you name it. But this is definitely something that we must do. Again, when you think about the materials, about a video presentation, this is not enough. It's not interactive. It doesn't. It is not. We need to find a way to add this component of chat and interaction, and this is something that we must do, and we need to find the right tools for that. So this is actually the first element that leads me to the last one. And the last one is, I think, is super interesting, but at the same time challenging. And again, it's always about choosing the right platforms. And what I want to mention here is that training is affected a lot by the trend of creators economy. Actually, today, anyone is a potential content creator. Definitely. We all create stories, TikToks, etc. And this is something great. And we, as training managers, training experts, even CEOs, owners, operation managers, we can use this trend and create an internal community of content creators inside the company. We can do more than that. We can do, and we see that in many companies, and it actually contributes a lot to the training culture in the business. We see that internal influencers are growing inside the company. They create lots of professional content. And I will speak about it later again, but this is another thing. It's challenging, but it's super interesting, and it's amazing for the company and for the business results.
Super interesting for me to approach content in this way. I think Corny and I will analyze some training content in a bit. So I'm going to hold my horses for that, but it's really interesting, especially the internal influencers in the creator economy. I want to shift us over now, kind of riding off of that. When it comes to Gen Z employees, obviously we know that Gen Z has really changed the game of how we consume, how we communicate in multiple channels and spaces, both professional and personal. And so what trends are we seeing when it comes to Gen Z employees and how they learn best and consume professional information within the work environment?
So thanks for the question. I know you, Gili, you're very polite. So it's nice of you to ask me this question. But I think I know the answer, okay? If this is a test, so I know the answer, but I think that you can be the best person to elaborate about it as Gen Z content creator and as Gen Z. So go ahead.
I think when from marketing, from a social media, from a content creator perspective, the biggest trend that we're seeing when it comes to Gen Z consumers, viewers, audience members, employees, even in their free time, is that we've really left the digital age of this picture perfect, scripted, perfect Instagram feed, right? Like we're seeing a complete shift over to people craving authenticity. And this word authenticity has become a buzzword, and it's a shame that it's being overused a lot, but you really see the biggest TikTok celebrities, the people that Gen Z love the most are everyday Joes. Like it's really becoming less of the Kardashians and these sparkly houses and mansions, and it's someone going to work or someone taking their dog on a walk. And I think this crave for authenticity, I'm really interested to see how it overlaps into the training world. I can just in my head imagine like a very official 1 hour training video feeling very corporate and perfect and great, and kind of maybe an employee craving something a little bit more raw and rough and real, and authentic and emotional. So that's my 2 cents. If you have anything else to add onto that, I'm curious to see how it fits in the training world, but I know also Courtney and I will cover in a sec. So I just want to ask, when it comes to training content, what effect are we seeing? What's the impact here?
So actually, first of all, I think that you described everything very well in terms of how what is authentic content and how it can contribute to the company. We deal with this kind of social media, TikTok style professional content. This is what we do at Bytes. We deal with the creation, but what we do as well is we monitor and track activities, and we check the results on a daily basis. And we see some very interesting and encouraging results. First of all, the overall engagement rates, okay? We are talking, when it comes to good content, to the content that we just spoke about and described. So we see a super high engagement rate. You can see here the number, it's an amazing number. And what's super interesting and important to emphasize, that we're talking about engagement not only with onboarding content and core training. Sometimes it's easier to create engagement with those types of content. And it's super, super challenging to create engagement with the ongoing updates, communications, training, which are super important for the business. And we see that when it comes to good content, so the engagement rate are super high, even when it comes to the ongoing. And people are asking for more and more and more content because they enjoy it. So this is one thing that we see. The second thing that, again, super cool and super important in terms of understanding if we're getting a real engagement, is that we see lots of interactions, especially when we enable a chat. So we see that there is an average of 50% of the people that consume the content also commented in a way around the professional content. It's like for trainers, for training managers and instructional designers, it's like, this is actually, it's a dream that people consume the content, they love it, they speak about it, they share things around it. So this is another thing that we see. When the content is boring, so we see less comments. It's a very simple equation.
I think it's really cool to see this angle about comments and the chat, because I feel like personally, as a person that's spending 3 to 4 hours a day on TikTok, my favorite part of the experience is just going straight to the comment section, because I want to see what other people have to say. I want to see if they noticed that same thing or had that same joke, and I want to feel connected. And I always say that comment section feels like a private group chat. Like, it feels like we're all sharing the same experience. So it's really cool to see how also in the training world, we can kind of foster that sense of like that private group chat, that we all just watched this or we all just did this, and now we can all kind of relate to it. And kind of comment on it together, which is really cool to see.
And we see that it's not a dream, it's something that actually happened. Yeah.
Super cool.
I would mention one more thing. When it from the company angle, from the managers, the content creators, we see that more content is being created in the company. When the company enables people to create this authentic content in a simple way, which is, we said before, much more engaging and effective, but when the company enables them to do so, so it's much more simple and fast to create content and to make sure that people are actually consuming it. So we see more and more and more and more content, and it actually leads me to the last thing that I wanted to mention, that we see more and more and more people that wants to be a part of this community. Okay, they are becoming like internal influencers, internal celebrities. They want to be part of this cool, very cool community. And it's all about training content. And let's don't forget, training content is super critical for business results, okay?
Right.
At the end of the day, we're all here as trainers to make sure that people understand the content and they sell more, we will gain much more higher customer satisfaction, etc., etc. So when we have this community, when content is being created more and more in much more engaging way, etc., etc. So at the end of the day, we see great business results and huge improvements sometimes.
I think it's really similar to when you look at the numbers. I don't have them on me right now, but when you look at the numbers of creators and how they've spiked in the past few years, because it's so much more accessible now for anyone to be a creator, whereas maybe in the early 2000s, you had to have a real camera or like you had to have equipment. And now it's like, you just need this. And then you can't see it because I have a green screen, but you just need this little device here and you can anyone can be a creator, which is a really cool concept to think about. So
and we say to our customers, guys, identify the people in the organization, in the company that they like Instagram, that they create stories to Instagram and to TikTok, and try to make them professional TikTokers, and this is amazing.
Super cool. Yeah, to find those like internal, as you said, internal influencers, it's super cool. Yeah. So Tal, you've completely convinced me, and I am assuming a lot of people here, the power of training content. So my final question for you is, how would I start? How would someone start?
Again, I think there is someone better than me to answer this question. So I'll just, Courtney, the stage is yours.
Amazing. Thank you, Tal, for joining us. So we asked, how do we start? And so I think Tal is completely right. We can just move right over to our next speaker, Courtney. Our next speaker, Courtney Sinnott, is passionate about continuing education, no matter what that looks like. She is the head of training and communication at Egg Harbor Cafe and an adjunct professor at the College of Lake County in Illinois. Combining her formal educational background and her experience with teaching, training, and developing content, she is thrilled to speak with you guys today to help you keep your learners inspired and engaged. So please welcome Courtney. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am just beyond grateful and so humbled to have been asked to be a part of this. So thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. We are super excited that you're here.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, and so you've been here on the call listening and absorbing what we've been saying, and I think like the main point I want to start is that, as I said, content is content, whether that's a piece of content that we get in our 9 to 5 or a piece of content that we're scrolling at midnight in bed. So it's really become the main way to deliver messages and to captivate your audience, whether that is in any sphere, in any framework. So when it comes into the world of training and development and L&D, we see a lot of times content takes the form in onboarding, in product and procedure training, and in ongoing training. So I first want to ask you, before we even get to this question, I want to ask you if you can just kind of walk us through how you and your team at Egg Harbor use content and how content, is used within your organization.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Tal, you did a great job answering those questions. I just want to say that I did not hear your responses or know what you were going to be saying prior to meeting today. And it's so interesting that a lot of the jargon that you used, you're going to see in some of my answers. So it's just so awesome to see that we're on the exact same page. So at Egg Harbor, we've been utilizing content for about a year at this point. So currently we use short form content for all menu training. So specifically, we use it for our limited time offer menus, which we call our LTO menus for short. And our LTO menus launch every 6 to 8 weeks. So there's a lot of information that we have to get to our frontline employees. And we have a bite-sized video for each item on the menu, and after each video for every item is a short quiz, which is usually just about 2 to 3 questions. Additionally, we just launched training plans that consist of bulk short form content that shows employees how to make every single drink that we offer, from our juices to our barista beverages and our alcoholic beverages. And we're currently working on something similar for our full menu and for our catering menu, both of which we really hope to roll out around the beginning of next year. And once we have short form content for all of our food and beverage, we are going to start creating content that pertains more so to the different roles that we have in our restaurants, like our servers, our hosts, our cooks, so that short form content can help them grow in their role. And I also did just want to mention that we actually provide our content in both Spanish and English. We really value, we create it 2 times, one in English, one in Spanish, from the words, from the audio, the words you see on the screen. We just really value our employees. And, like Tal said, it's all about the employee experience. And we have a lot of bilingual ESL and ELL employees that primarily speak Spanish. So we wanted to just make sure that our employees are set up for success and that we provide this content that really suits their needs.
That's really, really cool to hear. I mean, the whole experience of consuming content, it's so much more elevated when it's really catered towards you and your needs. So it's really cool to hear that.
Thank you.
And we have an example to show, just to kind of kick us off and just kind of look at, this is a piece of content that is from this LTO, this limited time offer menu. We're going with the holiday theme of pumpkin. So we're going to just quickly watch it just to kind of contextualize what it is that we're talking about. So here it goes.
Start by steaming 12 ounces of latte mix. Add 4 pumps of pumpkin spice syrup and 2 shots of espresso into a commuter mug. Then add the steamed latte mix on top. Top with 0.5 ounces of whipped cream and a dusting of cinnamon sugar on top.
So
thanks, Anna. I actually used to manage the Naperville location a long time ago. Saw her comment.
We have someone in the chat. Amazing. That made me so in the mood for a pumpkin spice latte now.
And fun fact, those are my hands in the video.
Oh my God. You are a great hand model.
Thank you.
So it's really cool to kind of see, you just spoke about this limited time offer menu and kind of see an example of it. And I'm really excited that we're going to watch some more as well as we kind of move on. And so my follow-up question to that is that now we have a better understanding of how you and Egg Harbor uses and leverages content.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through more of like a strategy? How did content fit into onboarding and training and development strategy?
Yes. So I kind of view content's role in the way that we communicate with and train our employees in a few ways. And this is just kind of like the trainer and instructor in me. I always try to rely on an acronym so that the attendees today can, walk away really remembering what it is that we're talking about. So first, content's role provides clarity. So obviously, it's a way to provide any and all necessary information to our employees. So training and communication can sometimes just be one big game of telephone, but this way we communicate directly to the employee and ensure that they get the intended message and can set our clear expectations of what they should be doing and how to do it. It's very clear. And then it also provides consistency. So if we can confidently say that every cook in our company has watched the exact same video and has the exact same information, then the exact same menu item will be made consistently across all location. And it really leaves just zero room for questioning, and it prevents one store from making it one way and maybe another store from making it a different way. Because at the end of the day, our guests are with us to eat a meal, right? They're coming for breakfast or lunch, and we are so lucky to have very loyal customers who visit all of our different locations. And it's just simply imperative that they get the exact same Egg Harbor experience regardless of which location they visit. Their experience is consistent.
Mhm.
And then lastly, it provides connection. So it isn't really easy for us to speak with and connect with every employee individually from the corporate level. But through these training videos with this content, we're able to connect and demonstrate what it is specifically that pertains to their world. And also we film our videos at various locations and have even used some hourly employees to assist in making the videos. So it can be a nice little surprise to watch a video and see one of your coworkers in it, and our employees feel really connected. And some of you might be thinking that, okay, these might be applicable to really any form of training or learning and development. But the thing about content specifically is that it's able to provide everything that I mentioned, being clear and consistent while connecting in an extremely quick, familiar, and relevant way. So we strategically use this very limited time to make a large impact.
It's super interesting when you mention that, someone would be excited to see a coworker in a piece of training content, because it really connects. It's so cool to see how we can connect so many parts of the training and the L&D world to my world and social media and content creation. Is that it's really cool to see a face that you recognize pop up on your feed. And there are a lot of studies that show when you look at like Instagram, very old, I'd say like 8 years ago, was really a big strategy for companies would hire a bunch of influencers and their feed would be like a mosh posh of random people. And now we're seeing this trend specifically on TikTok that you want 1 or 2 people to be in all of your videos, because when you're scrolling, you're like, oh, I know that person. Like it makes you stop. And that connection, and I can imagine working at a company and seeing a person that I work with pop up, and it kind of grabs me, it hooks me in more. So it's really cool to see the overlap there.
Thank you. Great point.
So Courtney, I want to drill down a little bit into the subsections that I mentioned when we started talking. And the first subsection I want to dive into is onboarding. So I know that currently Egg Harbor is not using content onboarding, but is planning to and preparing that. So can you kind of walk us through kind of where you see content fitting into onboarding? What goes into a good piece of content for an onboarding experience?
Yeah, totally. Great question. As you mentioned, as I mentioned, we haven't really gotten there yet. We're really utilizing content for menu currently, but we are planning on having these training plans of content for each individual role at the store level. And again, while we haven't rolled this out yet, I can share what we plan to do. And our plan is to start at the macro level. So training them maybe on front of house or back of house operations, right? Then have them go through the trainings for their particular role, and then maybe some additional specifics for what it is that they'll be doing or what stations they'll be working in. So looking at a barista, for example, we would take them through this front of house training plan, kind of like this overview, understanding how these different departments operate and how they work together in these different roles. Then they'll learn about the specific duties and responsibilities of their job. So I think where we can leverage content is to utilize it opportunistically. So just using this barista example, if they maybe want to pick up some more shifts, but all of the barista shifts are taken, they can enroll in these training plans for other positions, maybe a host or a busser, and they can become competent in these roles as well, and potentially pick up some host shifts maybe. And, obviously there's some behind the scenes logistics for, how that will officially work. But the idea is that they can utilize this content that we offer for growth, which could have a direct correlation to monetary gain. And I think one thing that's really interesting about using content for onboarding is that it's different. Employees are so used to watching these endless, long, drawn out videos going over every and anything that there is to know about the company, but content is something that they're used to. They know what they can expect and they know that they can complete it fairly quickly. So I think if a new hire experienced content for their onboarding process, it would be refreshing. And this could potentially even lead to maybe longer retainment if they're engaged right from the start and they just see how easy it can be.
I absolutely love that. And I think it's something that Tal and I had joked about when we were prepping for this, is that if your employees are scrolling short form content in their free time, why would you not use that during their work time? Like, if you know that works, don't need to reinvent the wheel. If that works in their free time, then we can just leverage it during the working environment. So it's really cool to see that. And I love what you mentioned about the opportunistic framework. That's super interesting. And I think I hadn't even thought about that this type of content really opens so many doors we didn't know existed. And it's super cool to see how that's working and Egg Harbor and will work in the future. So next subsection is product training and procedure training. So we all know that frontline employees, and honestly any employees in any organization, are given tons of info when it comes to both product and procedures when they first join a company and throughout the lifespan of that employee. And so how can we leverage content to make this process more engaging, more efficient? If you have any tips in this case, it would be menu training. I know we touched on it a little bit, but if you can walk us through that.
Yeah, so before we even started using content for menu trainings, we would, provide a packet to every manager, rely on them to get the information to each employee, maybe give the managers a quiz to make copies of and, hand them out to every employee. Maybe they'd have to have, a meeting with the whole staff after hours, reviewing this packet. Using content solves so many issues that stem from everything I just mentioned. So we don't need to rely on managers, which not only saves them time, but we can ensure that it's actually getting to the employees, that the information is getting to them. And employees don't have to take this handwritten test that maybe is peer graded or graded by managers, or maybe it's just done in a group setting altogether. And teams don't have to stay after for a meeting where, it might affect their home life or other responsibilities or make them late for a second job. But with content, employees are able to take it upon themselves to watch this content just on their own time. The power is completely in their hands. There's no manual work, which is, to me, just kind of the epitome of efficiency, right? And as I keep mentioning, it also just ensures every employee gets the exact same information. It's clear and consistent without losing the connection that you get from training, and it's trackable. We can ensure that those that need to be trained are trained.
I think it overlaps a lot with, we see this joke on LinkedIn when you scroll LinkedIn, is that didn't need to be a meeting. That could have been a message, right? So it's cool to see how it applies to frontline employees. That didn't need to be an after-hour meeting. That didn't need to be a meeting. It could have been a piece of content. And it's cool to see the efficiency that we're leveraging. So we have another example. This is a menu training example that I'm really excited to show. So I'm just going to pull it up.
In this video, we're making Key West crepes. Start off by warming 3 crepes on the flat top. Once the crepes are warm, place them on a large plate. Fill each crepe with 1.5 ounces of prepped strawberry cream cheese, 1 ounce of kiwi, which should be about 3 slices, 0.75 ounces of sliced strawberries, and 0.75 ounces of sliced bananas. Fold the crepes in half and arrange in a row on the plate. Top each crepe with a dollop of whipped cream, drizzle with raspberry sauce, and then finish by garnishing with a piece of each fruit on top of the whipped cream. Serve with a buttered English muffin with jam on a separate small plate.
Can I mention something real quick about
Yeah.
this training?
course.
So what's really cool is that that first training you saw, that was done with me, my production manager. It was a little bit more maybe like high quality production. This training was done by a cook and somebody from the menu team in Georgia. It was totally done without me, and they were able to just go into the kitchen and film how to make this menu item. It was just, I mean, talk about efficiency. It's just so great that really anybody can be a content creator, kind of like what Tal was saying and you were saying. It's like, find those people that already are familiar with it and utilize them.
That is so cool. It's just so accessible. I also think that I'm such a visual learner, and I'm sure lots of people are. I feel like if you had written out that in the handbook and handed it to an employee, or even just did like just saying to someone, this video, it really I feel like I'm ready to make Key West crepes tomorrow. Like I'm ready. It's super cool to see how there's such a flow to it, and it's super clear and straightforward. So I love that example. So
Thank you.
so moving on to our third category, ongoing training. So ongoing training and communication can take the form of, hey, there's a new procedure, there's a new menu change, we're out of this ingredient, maybe an internal update. Where do you see content fitting in internal and ongoing updates?
Yeah, so we, utilize the short form content to provide information for new menus. So that's kind of like the main role of content for ongoing training for now. But in regard to communication, we utilize content to get very important, high level, high impact information to the field. And we just simply call these announcements. Now, this looks a little different than the content we've been talking about. Rather than content that mimics maybe a TikTok or an Instagram reel, this more so mimics like an Instagram or Facebook Live. So it's set up so that we were looking right at the camera, directly to the listener. And what's great about these is that they're never longer than like 5 to 10 minutes. So they're still technically short form content. And again, these announcements are very high level messages, and they're usually only conducted by top leadership or higher level employees at the corporate level. So they're usually really just to be viewed by management or corporate employees. But we have other tools for communication like email, and we have the message center, but we utilize these announcements for two reasons. One, you can send an email and just, hope that everybody reads it, but there's no actual way to verify if somebody has received the message. So by utilizing our LMS to send these messages to these employees, we can track and ensure that anybody that needs to get this message we can verify. It just gives us that opportunity. And then the second is that if we have a very high impact, maybe even a very sensitive message that we need to get to the field, we want to make sure that it's communicated the way that we intend for it to be. So what I mean by that is that somebody can maybe read an email and perceive or infer this information just simply the wrong way. So by communicating this message verbally, the viewers can hear the message exactly how it's intended to be heard. They can hear the intonation in our voice. They can hear the emotion, see the emotion on the speaker's face. They can feel like this person from top leadership is speaking directly to them, like they're a part of the conversation rather than just reading it in an email. And I think it also just says a lot, just that top leadership is taking the time out of their day to create something like this, to make sure that the field gets this high impact message in such a personal way, because it obviously takes more time than just drafting an email. So I think that speaks to our company and just how much we value, the employee experience, which is a big theme of today's conversation. And, the employee experience, even at the managerial and corporate level, there's no denying the impact that this has on employee morale. So if you want to go to the next slide,
I love it.
Here I'm giving an announcement. Obviously, if these are saved for high level messages, I can't really show an example of one, but you can see from this still, my cheesy smile. I'm obviously very happy to be communicating whatever message this was. But you can see I'm talking right to the camera and it's quick. I think this one was maybe 4 or 5 minutes and just straight to the point. And the message was just delivered in a really personal way.
I absolutely love that you're touching on this point, because I think especially Gen Z employees, I'm Gen Z, so I'm allowing myself to say this, is that sometimes we can be a little bit sensitive the way things are worded. We can take things maybe a way that it wasn't meant. And so to hear the tone of voice, to hear, you see the eye contact and someone speaking instead of just an email. So it's completely clear and you feel the tone and the empathy. I think it's an amazing way that you're leveraging content. It's super cool to see. I always am reading into my dad's texts because he doesn't put exclamation points. And I'm like, are you angry? Like, so it's really cool to see.
Thank you.
So I want to ask you a little bit about the impact that you've seen at Egg Harbor across locations, across teams, once you shifted to this content-centered approach, and also how do we measure success?
Sure. So I think there's quite a few ways that content is impactful. I'd say first, it just saves management so much time. Short form content is concise, it's snappy, and it's to the point, and it should be easy to absorb in a few minutes or even seconds. So I mentioned that, we have trainings for every beverage that we offer. If a customer orders something that maybe a barista doesn't know how to make, they can simply, pull up the video on their phone and actually see how to make it. There's no need to grab a manager and ask for assistance. They have the resource, it's easily accessible, and it takes very little time. And also, while in the field training is important, content is something that employees are just used to seeing, and it's so easy for them to train themselves on their own through these short bite-sized videos. So our hope is that our employees want to improve their skill set, and maybe one night, instead of them scrolling through social media, maybe they'll watch how to make some of our menu items instead.
I love that. I will definitely watch your training videos.
Me too.
Thank you.
Super impressive, Courtney. Everything you just presented.
Yeah. I mean,
Thank you.
on a personal note, I just really enjoy that type of, I love food content. So it's something like your videos that I've watched of yours are videos that I would watch in my free time, which I think speaks for itself when we're talking about the employee experience, which is really cool to see.
Thank you so much. But regarding success specifically, I think this is just something that we're still working on, and we'll probably always continue to work on because, we ourselves are just always learning and growing. But we're seeing just this big shift in the L&D industry that, we're seeing in training in general. Training is hard to measure, teaching is hard to measure. Outside of Egg Harbor, I teach at the collegiate level. I'm a professor and I teach, ironically, public speaking and interpersonal communication. So I'm getting to use today what I teach my students. But I can say in my experience in both, this high education environment and the corporate training environment, there's a difference between learners and students just memorizing information and understanding it. So it's somewhat fairly easy to, read a document with a recipe and maybe pass a written quiz, especially if it's being taken immediately after reading this document, because our short-term memory is very strong. So the key is to focus on long-term memory, and that's measured through changed behavior rather than just simple knowledge. So there's actually a lot of science behind this. There's a book called Microlearning, Short and Sweet, and it mentions the neuroscience of learning, and that its aim is to help the learner remember the material and lead to a positive behavior change. So you can't directly see a change in someone's knowledge. So you have to infer that someone's knowledge has changed by observing a change in their behavior. And in our case, that behavior change is them being able to perform these tasks that are required for them to do their job. Content shows the behavior, again, in an extremely quick familiar and relevant way. And it models exactly what it is they need to do or how to behave.
Mhm.
And it isn't a printed packet that they have to memorize. We are giving them the answers of exactly what it is that they
Mhm.
need to do.
Mhm.
But I think the success of content really lies just in the hands of our learners. And I think one way to really measure the specific success of content is how often the learners are having to refer back to the content. Is it once, twice? In our case, is it every time they have to make this menu item? Now, depending on what LMS you use or whatever vessel to push through the content, that might be difficult to track, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that you track how many views the page gets. I mean, in our situation, it can just be as easy as asking managers how often employees are needing to reference the content to make their menu items. And if it's often, maybe we need to change and improve the content. But what's great is that it's a small risk. I mean, it takes 30 to 60 seconds to rewatch it.
I was just about to say that, like, even in the
Yeah.
case that someone maybe didn't fully absorb, the fact that it's so low risk that it's like a
Mhm.
15-second video that you're just like, okay, 1 second, let me just watch it.
Yeah.
That it's just like that soft padding there to
Yeah.
low risk, but it's really interesting to learn the science behind it. We're gonna write the name of the book you just said in the chat.
Sure.
Micro Learning Short and Sweet, right?
Yep.
All right.
Mhm.
We're
Yeah,
gonna
great
drop it in
book.
the chat. I'm really excited to check that out. So
Cool.
super cool. I want us to end on what makes content great, and this can be
Yeah.
a convo between the two of us, and then we'll go do the Q&A. I think first I want to hear what you think goes into great content, and then we're gonna analyze a piece of short form content together. So
Cool.
what makes content great?
Well, there are just so many things that makes content great. On a personal level, I just love that content is such a creative expression. I mean, when we hear that something is trending with social media content, whether it be a song or an audio clip or just something that's shown in a lot of people's content across the world, it's trending because it was someone's idea and other people thought it was great and wanted to do it too. So we're constantly just raising the bar for content greatness. And this world is full of creativity. And it's so great that we have this new vessel for people to express that. From a learning and development perspective, I have just a few things I wanted to mention, and some of these I've already kind of touched on, but I'm just going to emphasize them one more time. So one, it just should be simple. So the material covered is not necessarily material learned. People's brains work best when they're not overloaded because, your memory can only handle so much information. So less is often more. There's no need to overload your learners. Just keep it simple. And it should be relevant. We want our learners to keep coming back, right? We want them to want to learn more, and we don't want them to walk away thinking that it was a waste of their time. And it should keep their attention. So keep the clips just within the content short and maybe speed up longer processes to still show what needs to be done, but it doesn't necessarily need to be shown in real time. So for instance, with that pumpkin spice latte, we kind of sped up, pouring the milk, doing the whipped cream. Again, it doesn't have to be in real time, and just make sure that you're keeping their attention. And then it should be enjoyable. You can throw in some fun gifts, maybe use some upbeat music. And one thing I just wanted to kind of end with this question in particular is that we can almost think of our learners as our followers on a social media platform. We want them to continue to follow us, right? We don't want the unfollow. So how do we do that? By continuing to provide simple content that is relevant to their world, that keeps their attention, and that they can enjoy.
I love that. And I think with that metaphor is that as a content creator myself, I would never want to post a piece of content that I wasn't proud of and that it didn't have, an engaging element to it. And so it's cool to see as a trainer, you would never want to give a piece of training content that is not, fun and engaging and purposeful and has a why to it. So it's really cool to see the overlap there. And we're going to watch a piece of content together to end the webinar, and we'll just quickly analyze it together. So
cool.
In this video, we're making the Beyond Benny. Start off by placing 2 frozen Beyond sausage patties on the griddle, making sure to avoid cross-contamination with other meats. While the patties are cooking, crack 2 eggs into the poacher. Flip the Beyond sausage patties after about 2 minutes and continue cooking until both sides have browned and they are heated all the way through. Then put 1 patty on each half of a toasted English muffin on a large plate. Place a poached egg on top of each Beyond sausage patty. Then add 2 ounces of hollandaise on top of the eggs and sprinkle with paprika. Serve with 6 ounces of Harbor potatoes. Garnish the plate with an orange wedge and serve with a steak knife.
I know we're running a little bit over time, so I just we'll quickly analyze it and then we'll do a few minutes of Q&A. I just want to analyze it if you would allow me to do so from a content creator's
Go for it.
perspective. I think this is super cool that this is a piece of training content because as I've been saying again and again, feels like a fun, engaging, authentic piece of content. I like that there's a rhythm to it, and I always advise my clients when we're creating strong pieces of content that the viewer should know your why. Within 3 seconds of going to your profile or watching a video, I should know why I'm here. What am I getting out of this video, and why would I stay? And as we always say, stop the scroll. Why would I not scroll away? Yeah. And immediately we're told, in this video, we're going to learn this. So it got my attention. I know what I'm going to be learning. There is definitely a nice rhythm to it. I love that it feels super raw and real. I like that it feels like I'm there. It's not this like too high quality of production. It feels really authentic and just like real, as I keep saying. Yeah. The stickers are cool. I know I'm rushing through this. Sorry, everyone. I wish we had more time. The stickers are cool because the GIFs, they're telling my eyes where to look. The arrows are showing, hey, look over here. It's guiding me through the story. The storyline is clear. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. My favorite part is it's not too long. It's super digestible and snackable. And the music, it gives it a beat. You know, sometimes we forget that music is a huge part of the process and the journey of content. So absolutely. I'm sped through that on 4 times speed, but I love that piece of content. And I think it's a really, really strong way to end the webinar and show how content can be so powerful.
Thank you.
So Courtney, Tal, thank you both for joining us. We have a few questions in the chat, so if you guys will just stay back a few minutes, I'm gonna look through them together. But I hope everyone enjoyed. If you guys have to go, we totally get it. We're over time, so thank you everyone for joining. We hope that you walk away a lot. And I will just say, if you're looking to learn a little bit more about Bytes and the Bytes platform, feel free to check out our website. Noam will drop it in the chat. So question time. Courtney, we have a question for you. What platform or platforms do you use to get the content training to your staff?
So we use SharePoint and Outlook, and they have an LMS application that we use called LMS 365. So there's a lot of really great LMS out there. If you don't know what LMS is, it's a learning management software. There's really great ones for us. Every Egg Harbor employee has an Outlook email, and we utilize SharePoint and Outlook a lot. And for us, we went with LMS 365 just because it's the same software. It integrates very easily. So we use that as our LMS, and then we use a combination of production, whether it be using the Bytes application or, we'll just kind of do things on our own where we film it and maybe put it into Canva or iMovie. We have a production manager on staff that assists with all of that, but it all gets pushed through to the employee through our LMS.
Super cool. We have a question for Tal. We have Elisa wrote in the chat, what tools does Bytes have in place that we can utilize for engagement with training? For example, is there a way built in to ask questions? Additionally, if you ask someone to explain back to you a topic they've learned, can you see how they've absorbed information and whether there are any gaps?
So thanks for the question.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah. let me say a few words about Bytes. We didn't say anything about the platform. So first of all, Bytes is a platform for training and ongoing professional communication. The platform enables companies to create content. We saw a few examples here, not only to create the video in a social media style video, but also to create like a small or short learning cycles. We call each learning unit, learning cycle, a byte. And when we want to create a long course or as I said before, much complicated process, so companies and trainers can create a playlist of bytes. So first of all, we enable to create the content, but and you can add all kinds of elements to the content, like questions, chats, summary cards, to make sure that the main points are clear. So this is about the content creation. There is a very advanced analytics dashboard that enables you to monitor actually everything you need. We know to customize the dashboard per specific needs. So in terms of gaps or how people consume the content, this is something that you can actually see through the dashboard. There is full transparency. And I would like to add something that Courtney mentioned. It's super important to be able to integrate with the already existing and simple channels that our employees already use. And this is one of the main things that we believe in. And we know with the Bytes system to integrate with any channel. You can actually integrate to a few channels at the same time, to send content via WhatsApp, SMS, email at the same time. And it's like seamless integration. Hope I answered everything.
You definitely did. We have someone asking if we're able to send any materials for this webinar that I can take back to my team. I want to answer that we will be sending the recording of this webinar. Additionally, we will also be sending some additional resources in our follow-up emails to help out with that. I'm just looking for any more questions.
Gilly, I saw one that asked if we also provide, what was it, materials in addition to the video, or was this? Yes, so we do also provide, like Tal was saying, materials are really kind of the foundation for the content. We do provide that also, but when it comes to what's required of the employee, we utilize the content. But we provide the materials just as really support for management.
Thank you for that. We just have a few people. Let's see if there's anyone else. Happy to see all these comments of people that enjoyed. We're really happy you guys enjoyed, and we're so happy you guys joined us. We have, let's see. Do you also have the handwritten reminder as a job aid? Someone asked.
Yes, that is what I was just kind of touching on, is that we also have the materials just to support.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the question you just, I think we got all the questions. If anyone else has a question, we'll hang back for another minute or two, but besides that, thank you all for joining. We'll be sending, if anyone missed it, we'll be sending additional resources. Noam's gonna drop the Bytes website in the chat. If you guys want to learn more about Bytes and the Bytes platform and how they're doing really, really cool things when it comes to social media style training, really engaging and really cool stuff they're doing here at Bytes. And speak now or forever hold your question. We're here for another minute.
If anybody has a question, they're welcome to find me on LinkedIn and message me there. I'm more than happy to answer something that comes to them later on.
Awesome. Same goes for me. If content questions, Noam and I are on LinkedIn. I'll write my name as well. So cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Hope you enjoyed.
Thanks, Gilly. Thanks.
Thank you, Gilly.
My
Thank you so much.
You guys, I learned so much from the both of you. So thank you guys. I feel like I walked away with tons of a new way of looking at training. So thanks for that, and have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.